Are Israel and Iran about to blow up the Middle East? Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. Is war about to erupt throughout the Middle East? I think it's quite possible. So let's start right here. This is from The Guardian. It says Netanyahu seeks to draw Trump into future attack on Iranian nuclear sites. It says Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed that with Donald Trump's support, his government will, quote, finish the job of neutralizing the threat from Iran amid U.S. reports that Israel is considering airstrikes against Iranian nuclear sites in the coming few months. Trump has said he would prefer to make a deal with Tehran, but also made clear that he was considering U.S. military action if talks failed, and his administration has laid down an early maximalist demand: Iranian abandonment of its entire nuclear program. Quote, all options are on the table, U.S. National Security Advisor Michael Waltz told Fox News on Sunday. The new administration will only talk to Iran, Waltz added, if they want to give up their entire program and not play games as we've seen Iran do in the past and prior negotiations. Earlier this month, Trump offered the Iranian regime a stark choice. Quote, I would like a deal done with Iran on non-nuclear, he told the New York Post. I would prefer that to bombing the hell out of it. In politics, as is in business, Trump's vaunted art of the deal has relied heavily on bluster and threats, but analysts question how well that will work with Tehran. They also warned that the window for a diplomatic resolution to the standoff with Tehran will get narrower with each passing month as Iranian nuclear capabilities progress and Netanyahu works to persuade Trump to participate in joint strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities while at its most vulnerable. And that's the key, guys. There's a dwindling window of time here where it's an optimal time for Israel to act against Iran. And that's what makes this highly likely that we will see war between Israel and Iran in 2025. So what are they talking about here with its most vulnerable? Well, we come down here. It says Israel and Iran launched a series of tit-for-tat attacks on each other last year, culminating in substantial Israeli airstrikes on October 25th that inflicted significant damage on Iran's air defenses. That damage, combined with Israel's crippling campaign over the past year against Iran's most important ally in the region, Hezbollah, has left Iran in its most militarily vulnerable state for decades. Standing alongside the new U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Sunday, Netanyahu made clear he wanted to take advantage of that vulnerability. Quote, over the last 16 months, Israel has dealt a mighty blow to Iran's terror axis. Under the strong leadership of President Trump, and with your unflinching support, I have no doubt that we can and will finish the job, he said. U.S. intelligence agencies have been briefing reporters over the past week that they believe Israel is likely to attack Iranian nuclear sites in the first half of 2025. But the intelligence assessments also underlined Israeli reliance on U.S. support in the form of aerial refueling, intelligence, and reconnaissance. U.S. officials also said such strikes would at most set Iran's program back by a few months and could trigger Tehran's decision to take the decisive step toward making weapons-grade uranium. Whatever the misgivings in Washington, the Trump administration approved the sale earlier this month of guidance kits for bunker-busting BLU-109 bombs, likely to be essential in inflicting damage on Iran's mostly deeply buried enrichment plant at Fordow. Netanyahu was the first foreign visitor to be invited to the White House after Trump's re-election, and according to the Washington Post, the two leaders discussed, quote, several possible levels of American backing, ranging from active military support for a kinetic strike, such as intelligence, refueling, or other assistance, to more limited political backing for a coercive ultimatum. Guys, that as this article states, Iran is uniquely vulnerable right now compared to a year ago or 2 years ago. Iran's proxies have been inflicted with heavy damage, and Iran's air defense systems back in October took a decisive hit. So this window of opportunity won't stay open for long, and that's why it's likely that Israel is going to take advantage of that, especially with the Trump administration being much more friendly to the Netanyahu government and Israel in general. And so we're highly likely to see Israel strike Iran in 2025. We also have Iran making signals to the same effect. So we had this from the Times of Israel. It says, top Iranian general warns Tehran will strike Israel again at, quote, appropriate time. A senior Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps general warned Monday that Iran would carry out a third wave of missile strikes against Israel at, quote, the appropriate time, after Tehran previously launched 2 rounds of direct attacks on Israel in April and October 2024. The True Promise 3, so those 2 operations were called True Promise 1 and True Promise 2, the True Promise 3 will be carried out in appropriate time, said Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the IRGC Brigadier General Ali Fadavi at Tehran's University of Technology in remarks carried by Iran's Mir news agency. So we have Iran threatening to attack Israel, Israel saying now is the time to attack Iran. And again, there's a window of vulnerability that's going to close, and that's why it's likely we're going to see this. We had this from Prophecy Newswatch that explains that. It says, Israel's calculated gamble why a 2025 strike on Iran looks more likely. It says, the drumbeats of war are getting louder. Recent U.S. intelligence reports suggest that Israel is inching closer to launching strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. If this happens, it could redefine the balance of power in the Middle East, at least for a little while. But why now? What has changed to make such an audacious move not only plausible, but in the eyes of Israeli leadership, necessary? It says, a window of opportunity and it's closing fast. For years, Israeli defense planners had debated the merits of a preemptive strike on Iran's nuclear program. Tehran's ambitions have never been a secret, but what has changed is the timing. The factors aligning in 2025 make the prospect of an Israeli strike not just likely, but also almost inevitable. First, Iran's defenses are weaker than they've been in years. The late 2024 Israeli bombing campaign significantly degraded Iranian air defense capabilities, creating an opening that military strategists might not get again. An attack now could have a far greater chance of success than it would have had even a year ago. Second, Israel sees a narrow time frame to act before Iran's nuclear ambitions become irreversible. Intelligence assessments indicate that Tehran is closer than ever to possessing weapons-grade uranium. While U.S. officials argue that a strike might only delay Iran's progress by weeks or months, Israeli defense officials believe the impact could be far greater, perhaps even setting Iran back years. And that's what matters, guys. It's not what U.S. officials believe, but what Israeli defense officials believe. And if they believe that this would be beneficial, then that's what we're going to do. And guys, we're seeing that window close with each passing day. So these conditions right now are ideal for Israel, in its own eyes, to attack Iran. But as we see in stories like this from the Jerusalem Post, that won't remain open forever. So if we read down in this story here, we find out that something could happen within the next year. So it says the production line of the IRGC Aerospace Force has also continued. Hajizadeh added, so this is one of the generals talking to the Jerusalem Post, says despite enemies' efforts to stop it, he claims in the report, and said the Islamic Republic had made significant advancements in defense and drone capabilities, such as developing 2,000-kilometer range missiles, and also an anti-ballistic missile defense system, a project which the Brigadier General says began in 2022 and that it'll likely be ready by next year. So if that's true and they have this missile defense system that could be put in place within a year, then you really have this short window of opportunity for Israel to strike Iran. You also have news stories like this one from Newsweek. This is just from yesterday. It says Iran says it broke up U.S. spy ring. So it says Iran says it smashed multiple espionage networks it alleged were working for the United States and Israel, marking Tehran's latest move against what it calls a vast web of foreign spies. The arrest, carried out in Iran's northern province, Mazandaran province, come amid soaring tensions between Tehran and Washington, with Iranian officials vowing harsh consequences for foreign interference. Iran frequently accuses foreign intelligence agencies of attempting to infiltrate its security infrastructure, often launching sweeping crackdowns on suspected spies. The latest arrests reflect Tehran's ongoing battle against alleged operatives, though Iranian authorities have yet to provide any evidence of the claims. These accusations also come at a time of heightened military and geopolitical tensions, with Iran threatening retaliation in the event of any strikes on its nuclear facilities. Savash Maslemi, an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commander in the Mazandaran province, said the authorities had successfully disrupted intelligence operations allegedly linked to U.S. intelligence, Israel, and other hostile countries. Maslemi said the suspects entered Iran as foreign nationals or visitors, using trading companies, cultural organizations, and charities as cover to gather classified intelligence and establish infiltration networks. He added that the operation had prevented security threats and potential crises, but did not specify the number of arrests or provide proof of links to the U.S. or Israel. So guys, did they break up some sort of intelligence ring or not? We don't really know. We don't know the extent of that. But each day that Israel and the United States delay is more time for such things to happen. And that's why, with Iran at its most vulnerable state that it's been in decades, as these articles cited, it's highly likely that Israel will take advantage of that situation to strike Iran's nuclear capabilities. Now, what does that mean? What is the prophetic impact of that? What's the likely response from Iran if that happens? These are the questions we need to be asking. Is Iran likely to sit back and do nothing? Or will, as they promised, they'll launch a third barrage of attacks on Israel? I think that's highly likely. We don't know what their capabilities are at this point. They have taken a big hit over the last year and a half. But Hezbollah still exists. Many of these terrorist proxies still exist and could potentially inflict major damage on Israel as a result of this. We've also talked in the past about the vulnerability of the Strait of Hormuz. 40% of the world's oil travels through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran could close it at a moment's notice and use that to threaten the world, hold the world hostage until Israel steps back. So we'll wait and see what actually transpires as a result of this. But from a prophetic impact, how does this relate to the end times? Well, I think it's most likely having to do with this and setting the stage for what we read about in the Gog of Magog war in Ezekiel 38 and 39. And particularly this verse right here, verse 11 in chapter 38, where it says, "You will say, I will invade a land of unwalled villages. I will attack a peaceful and unsuspecting people, all of them living without walls and without gates and bars." This is a description of Israel at peace, without walls, and a state of tranquility. And if we go to the original language, we can see that that's exactly what is stated: a tranquil people, quiet or undisturbed. As that certainly doesn't describe Israel today. It doesn't describe Israel in any state since its inception, its rebirth back in May of 1948. So how does Israel get from where it is today to that state of tranquility and undisturbed peace that we read about in Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 11? Well, somewhere between now and then, we have to see Israel's immediate threats eliminated. So we would have to see Hamas eliminated, Hezbollah eliminated, the Iranian nuclear program eliminated, perhaps even the Iranian regime itself, the current regime moving out of power. We would have to see the government in Syria that's come into power recently. They would have to be having a more friendly stance toward Israel than what they seem to have. But all of these enemies and terrorist organizations surrounding Israel would need to no longer be a threat. So how could that happen? Well, it could happen if we see war break out right now, Iran's nuclear program taken out, all of these different threats and proxy armies that are on Israel's border eliminated. Right now, Israel has this opportunity to have a friendly administration in the United States, and I believe that they might be looking to take advantage of that and thus creating a situation where they look around and say, well, the threats to our existence have been eliminated as we have eliminated these threats, and setting the stage for the Gog of Magog war that we read about in Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39. So what do you think? Leave your comments below and let me know what you think. Before we end, in case you missed it, I appeared on Hope for Our Times with Pastor Tom Hughes this week. That was on the midweek prophecy update. So make sure to head over to the Hope for Our Times channel, check that out. We talked about a number of topics related to the end times, so I'll put a link to that and pin it at the top of the comments below. You can go check that out if you want to. But guys, what do you think about all of this? Are we likely to see Israel attack Iran, try to destroy Iran's nuclear program in the very near future? Well, it's a highly likely possibility based on what we're hearing Netanyahu and other world leaders saying. Will it be as simple as airstrikes that take out that program? Could we then see the Iranian regime fall in the aftermath of that? I don't know. What could be the impact? Could there be a much bigger conflict than what people think as a result of that if the Iranian regime survives and counterattacks using its proxy armies, using drones, using missiles, maybe even the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, leading to skyrocketing oil prices for the entire world? All that remains to be seen, but guys, this could erupt at any moment, and that's why we should be very watchful in this this part of the world. We should always be focused on Israel and what's happening with Israel, because this is going to be center stage for the events that take place in the end times. So again, let me know what you think. Leave your comments below. God willing, I will see you Monday. Bye.